Hi everybody and welcome very much to the channel. It's almost World Cup time, the most anticipated sporting event, especially for the ones that like football or soccer. This time around we have to use soccer term as well because majority of the tournament will be held in the United States of America, so it's football and soccer just this year though, just this year. Next it's just football, okay? Now jokes aside, let's talk about World Cup. And I'm from Portugal if you don't know, and I think I should start my coverage of the World Cup by talking about Portugal. So today we're going to talk about the players that were called to participate in the competition. Before we start, leave a like and subscribe, and let me know in the comments what national team you want me to talk about next. And also, I'll be doing here in the channel a lot of Football Manager 26 content around the World Cup, because in the 26th of May or the 27th, there will be the International Management update to Football Manager. So we finally will be able to use national teams in the most recent version of our favorite football game. So wait until then, the content is coming. Now let's talk about Portugal. First, before we talk about the players that were called up for the national team, we first have to talk about the manager. The people are still very divided between the opinion of Roberto Martinez. I think most Portugal fans, they don't hate Roberto Martinez, but they also don't like him. And I think there is this feeling, this vibe in the air around the Portuguese people that Roberto Martinez is just not using or enabling the full potential of our national team. Because some of the calls of Roberto Martinez are preventing some young players with a lot of potential to come into the national team, at the same time is also blocking certain players that have quality or potential, but that play, for example, in Portugal or in a bit more underrated leagues. And some of the Roberto Martino calls are blocking the access of those players like Ricardo Horta and Pedro Gonçalves. And I know Pedro Gonçalves, for an example, didn't have the best season, but in other times where he was playing really well, he was not called up. And for example, Paulinho from Mexico, I think he was doing a great job there. Maybe he could be more useful than certain players that were called to the national team. So Roberto Martinez is making some doubtful calls. Most of the calls were right, let me tell you, in my opinion. But another thing that is a bit weird, and you have to understand as a Portuguese fan or not a Portuguese fan, we must understand why Roberto Martinez makes his choices. So he likes to have a group of work that is somewhat fixed. He likes to know that when it's time to practice with the national team, he has a core group of players that maintain his ideas and fit those ideas, and also the vibes pretty stable, pretty grounded, but always with that hint of Portuguese spirit in them. If you know, you know. So Roberto Martinez, I think sometimes he just doesn't call certain players because he thinks he doesn't have enough time to integrate them into the group of work. But if he never calls them, there will be no time for them to integrate. So sometimes he calls some different players. For example, for the friendlies versus USA and Mexico, he did call up Ricardo Horta, the best player for Braga, the fourth biggest team in Portugal. And he's having a really, really good season, but he didn't call him for the World Cup, which was a bit weird. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm not saying Ricardo Horta will make big difference, but maybe, and it will be good to see a player that plays in Portugal, for a historical club. He's the best player ever to play in Braga, the fourth biggest in Portugal. So I think it will be very fitting to have him going to the World Cup, because he's representing Portugal itself, the national team, and the league, and the history and whatnot, and he was a very good player, and he is a very good player, so it could make a lot of sense for him to actually participate. And then, that leads to the point of not calling new players sometimes, and then Roberto Martinez sometimes keeps calling the same players, even though we, the Portuguese fans, don't like them in the national team. We don't think they are good enough or they have enough desire, but he keeps calling them because they're already a part of his group of work, so he's already customized with them, and he thinks calling them will help maintain the ideas, the tactics, and the vibes. So it's not just Roberto Martinez doesn't like that player or that player didn't do well enough. It's like that player needs to do very well, like really, really well, to be able to perturb the group in Roberto Martinez's perspective. Because I think if a player, especially for a World Cup, which is a very important competition, if they have a above average season and they are not already a part of the group, they will not be called in. And on the other side, if a player that's already a part of the group has a below average season, Roberto Martinez will still call them. So it's a bit weird, kind of blocking new players and players that are playing well at the moment and maintaining some weird choices just because they're already part of the group, you know what I'm saying? So that's the key point that we need to understand about Roberto Martinez is his selection process. It's not just, oh, that player played really well, he's doing really, really well. It's just his own way of thinking and working in the national team. Now let's talk about what I think are the chances of Portugal winning the World Cup. I think they are slim. I think no team has big chances of winning the World Cup. I think we have a lot of good contenders. I think France looks the best side, but they're not as the best as they used to be. I think there was a bigger difference in other World Cups. I think more teams are better right now, and teams that were really, really good, like Argentina, for an example, they are also not so good. So I think a lot of nations that are in that top bracket can win the World Cup. I think England, France, Portugal, Brazil, Argentina, Italy. You know what I'm saying? I think Italy can win the World Cup. Sorry, mea culpa, mea culpa. Spain, of course. Yeah, actually, I think those are the national teams that I really think can win the World Cup. I think then like Netherlands, Belgium can also be considered, but I don't think they are as powerful as they need to be. So out of those national teams, Spain, France, England, Spain, Portugal, Brazil, and Argentina, I think all of those are very good chances of winning the World Cup. So I don't think anyone has like a very big chance because it's being divided by 8 basically. But I do think Portugal will at least play really well and give a lot of good shows. But again, we have to come back to Roberto Martinez, because national teams are as good as their players are and as their manager is. And you always have to think about what Roberto Martinez did or didn't do at Belgium. He kind of ruined their golden nation, and a lot of people in Portugal kind of think he's doing the same to our best generation, and he's not, like I said earlier, potentializing their full ability. But I've seen different things from Roberto Martinez managing Portugal than I see with Belgium. I think, for example, in the last Euro, the game against France was really, really good from Portugal. We struggled against the smaller teams, but against the bigger teams, we actually were able to compete. And I think that's a good sign, or at least it makes me more comfortable about Roberto Martinez. Now, I think Portugal can go very, very far away, but it really depends on 2 factors. First, grit, power of the soul, being focused, having high spirits, but still grounded. Because like in Euros 2016, when Portugal won 10 years ago, I think grit and the power of belief and the spirit of the national team of Portugal was what won them the game, the whole tournament. Because they go third in the group stage, and then they make it all the way to the final and win. So it's not like they were the best team. They were not the best team. I remember really well. But they were grit. They had grit, they had power, they had soul power, spiritual power, you know what I'm saying? And of course, good players and the good tactics. But it was more than that that allowed them to win. So I think this year it can work the other way around. They have the talent, they have one of the best teams in the world, they're really, really good, but they might lack that spirit, they might lack that grit. And it's some of those players that I've confirmed through my experience that they lack that grit, they lack that willpower, some of them being called up to the national team for this World Cup. That makes me feel a bit weird about it, and we'll talk about that. Then the second factor that is really important for Portugal to win is their adaptation, because it's going to be hot, it's going to be very humid, like we've seen last year at the Club World Cup. The players were tired, dead tired at 60 minutes already, even with the refresh breaks. And also, that's something we have to consider on a later discussion, is how the games will be different with breaks, with the new rules that FIFA is adding, but that will be for another video actually. Because Portugal usually don't take serious the adaptation, they just do their practice, they go to the country where it is, and they play ball. But for example, in Brazil, I think Portugal didn't perform well, because they were not ready. You just could see them very tired, dead tired. I think the same happened in South Africa, where Portugal had not really good performance at the World Cup. And I think that was one main reason the adaptation wasn't great. And for example, in Brazil, Germany, they did awesome preparation. They were training in buildings with like very hot temperatures. They were practicing wearing like 7 layers of clothing to simulate the humidity and the heat in Brazil. And then they came out on top. So I think Portugal will also not take this preparation very seriously. I don't think them investing into their side of the game of really like being smart, really try to do everything they can to win. I just think they're gonna do practice and they're gonna go and play ball, and that's it. And I think that will perturb them, especially because our best players play a lot of games for their teams. Vitinha, Nuno Mendes, and Joe Neves are a good example. They play a lot, like a lot of games for Paris Saint-Germain, and they might be already tired, and then harsh conditions with no good preparation. I think that's going to be really harsh on the Portuguese team. So I don't think Portugal will win the World Cup because without that preparation, without that adaptation, without that extra work, Portugal will not be able to differentiate themselves from the good teams, the really good teams, and that is what will make the difference. It's the very good teams taking that extra step, taking that extra preparation. If Portugal doesn't do that, the only way is really to be in a crazy good mental state, have great spiritual power, and just fight harder and have creativity and the composure to score goals at the right times and defend well at the right times. If Portugal doesn't have that, quality will not be enough because they will not be prepared, in my opinion. Prepared, I mean, for the weather and the weather conditions, not for the other teams. Now, let's take a look about the call-up list from Roberto Martinez for the Portuguese national team World Cup participation. So here we are. It's not the full list yet. I think we have one player missing here. But first, 4 goalkeepers. The first interesting thing of this lineup. But it's not literally 4 goalkeepers, because one of them will only participate if another goalkeeper is injured. So goalkeepers Diogo Costa, José Sá, Rui Silva and Ricardo Velho. Here I agree. Diogo Costa is the best Portuguese goalkeeper. Rui Silva very, very solid for Sporting. José Sá, I don't think has been doing a great season, but he's already part of the group for a very, 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 very long time. So he has good chemistry. He is experienced already and can bring some good value in practice. Ricardo Velho, it's going to be the same thing, because even though he cannot participate in the World Cup games, only if a goalkeeper gets injured, he can still participate in practice. So having 4 good goalkeepers will improve the quality of the finishing of the Portuguese attackers, because if you want to score goals in practice, you have to pass through 4 very good goalkeepers, and that of course will increase the challenge and increase the performance of the Portuguese strikers. So here, I don't think there is another goalkeeper that could make their way into the national team. I think this is it. I think it's very, very good. I think there are maybe some other players, maybe some young goalkeepers could be looking at here to gain some experience, but I think this is perfect and makes a lot of sense. I think it was a bit smart from Roberto Martinez to bring another goalkeeper just in case of the injury, and to also improve the practice quality and also to give him a chance, because Ricardo Velho has been great in Portugal and now outside of Portugal playing his career. I think he should have been called up earlier, but Portugal always had some good goalkeepers. I think it's now his chance to help the team, and hopefully nobody gets injured. But if it does, hopefully it's José Sá, because he's our 3rd goalkeeper, and hopefully Ricardo Velho can come in and actually play that last game of the group stage if you're already qualified. But I wish no harm to José Sá. I wish we have all a good World Cup. Then let's go to the defenders, and here we find our first problems. First, let's call them out. All the players: Diogo Dalot, Mateus Nunes, Nelson Semedo, João Cancelo, Nuno Mendes, Gonçalo Inácio, Renato Veiga, Rubén Dias and Tomás Araújo. First, Tomás Araújo, I think great call-up. The only problem is he's very injury prone. My cousin once called Tomás Araújo the Saint Just of Benfica. And if you don't know Portuguese football lore, Saint Just was a Sporting player until this season. He left this season, and he was a very good central back. He was composed, he was fast, he was strong, and he was like really fast. He could cover space behind his defensive line, like the best in the league. Like, he was even faster than some wingers and some strikers in the Portuguese league. But there was a major problem. He was always injured. Sometimes he comes back from injury, I don't know, he was like 2 weeks injured, right? He comes back, he's fully recovered, he's playing the match really, really well, and then gets injured by himself while like walking to the midfield line, or walking to the... No, that's a joke. I was about saying walking to the locker room, and he gets injured. Now that's a joke, but you see the point. He will get injured, like, not in like physical duels, not because he was playing 90 plus minutes. No, it was like at 35 minutes he's injured now. At 45 minutes, at 66 minutes, oh, he's injured now because we don't know, but he's injured. Like, he's walking by himself and gets injured. So one of my cousins said that Tomás Araújo is like him, but from Benfica, which is true. He's very injury prone. I think he's the best central back in Benfica. I think he's one of the best in the Portuguese league. He's really, really good, really solid. And the thing is, these injuries are not from now, so it kind of stopped his potential because he's still young, but he used to be younger. He used to be a wonder kid, I think, in FM, I'm not sure. But I think the injuries in real life, because it's not like big injuries, he's out for 6 weeks, but it's always happening, always on top of it. So sometimes he can't finish games, sometimes he can start games, he can't practice as much, he's not very confident perhaps in his body. So I think it's a good call up because he's really good. I think he's not as good as Ruben Dias, but if Ruben Dias gets injured or tired, we will not be losing games because of Tomás Araújo. I just think maybe he's going to even get injured before the World Cup or at the World Cup. So it's going to be interesting to see. I actually want to see him and Gonçalo Inácio play as starters. Dual central back that represent the Portuguese league. I think that's really cool for us. We love to see our league represented. But I think it's a good choice because usually it has been Antonio Silva, and I think mentally he's not at his best right now. He's still very good. He's still very consistent, but sometimes he makes mistakes actually playing the ball. It's not while defending, it's while making passes. Everybody remembers against Georgia in the Euros. And I think it was kind of from there that his performance and even growth started to go down because confidence, you know. But I think it's a good option. Both Antonio Silva, Tomás Araújo will be a good option. I just think Tomás Araújo is a bit more consistent and mentally stronger at the moment, and physically, technically, he's better than Antonio Silva, I think, as well. Not by much, but he is better. Now, the problems. Let's talk about the problems. I think in the whole in the whole defensive line, we have great, amazing players. But we have some players that are not necessary in my perspective. Maybe Roberto Martinez knows something about the physical capacity of certain players. Maybe he has a tactical idea that we don't know about, that these players will fit in. But I think Nelson Semedo and Diogo Dalot shouldn't be here. And I know it's weird, and I'm not saying both shouldn't be here, because I think we need an option to the left. Yes, we have Nuno Mendes there. He's going to be starting. He's the best left back in the world, for sure. And then we can play João Cancelo there. But what about if we want to play Nuno Mendes and João Cancelo at the same time? Then we have no really left back. And Diogo Dalot can do it, but he's not great. Nelson Semedo can't do it, Matheus Nunes maybe can do it. But we don't have a good left back option. So we are bringing 2 extra right fullbacks, because I see João Cancelo starting on the right, or even Matheus Nunes starting on the right. So we have 2 extra right fullbacks that I don't think are necessary. And I think that maybe we have that extra right fullback because Roberto Martinez wants to use Matheus Nunes as a midfielder. And I could see that even going wide or going in the middle. And that makes sense to me. If that's the case, I think I agree. And if we see Matheus Nunes playing in the midfield, I think that will be cool. But then it's like we have Vitinha, João Neves, Bernardo Silva, Bruno Fernandes. So are we going to play with 5 midfielders? Or where are we going to insert Matheus Nunes? As a winger, maybe? I don't know. So you see, it's like, again, he can play as midfielder too, but we have very good midfielders. Yes, good for subs, good for starting in games that we have maybe some tired players. But I think we should be more focusing on, okay, let's bring our best players, and then we play ball. Then we play it out. So I think Nelson Semedo and Diogo Dalot are not necessary for this lineup, because I don't think we're going to be starting Matheus Nunes as midfielder. I don't think we're going to be Matheus Nunes starting as a... I don't think also we're going to be see Matheus Nunes playing as a right back as a starter. So, okay, it's going to be the right back sub or the midfield sub. He can do both. And then for the left, we have Nuno Mendes and who, right? We don't have like a dedicated left back just to replace Nuno Mendes when he gets tired. So I think it would be best to bring a actually left back that plays well, or at least can be good sub quality. Doesn't need to be as good as Nuno Mendes, right? And then Nelson Smith and Diogo Dalot. What are they going to do right now? They're going to play right back. They're going to play left back. Like, Diogo Dalot can play left back, but I don't think it's the best option that we have. And Nelson Smith can't even play left back. So will Nelson Smith be the substitute of João Cancelo if João is a starter? Or is Matheus Nunes going to be the sub? Because then, what is Nelson Smith doing, you know? I think Nelson Smith and Diogo Dalot are those type of choices that fit into the category that I talked about earlier. That Roberto Martinez is familiar with them. He already knows that they are a part of the group and they can fit well into his ideas, so he's keeping them. So we have here two call-ups that I think are Roberto Martinez mindset instead of the best players that we have available. And I think to me those are the only problems in defense. I think central backs, we got it covered. Ruben Dias, Tomás Araújo for the right, Gonçalo Inácio, Renato Veiga for the left. I actually like Renato Veiga. I just think a lot of people don't like him because they don't even watch the matches with Villarreal. And I think, yes, he could have been playing on a better team or on a better setup, but still, La Liga is a very good team. He has to play against very creative sides, not Athletic Madrid, not Getafe, right? And I think he can even perform better than he has been performing. But I think he's a good central back. I think defensively he's slightly stronger than Gonçalo Inácio, but in terms of passing and being a ball-playing defender, Gonçalo Inácio is much better, but not that much better as well. So, and Renato Veiga can also play three central backs, can play in the middle, can play left back if you want to defend a bit more. So I think he's actually pretty good. I don't think there was another central back that could be like, no, bro, we need that guy. Like, we can't take anybody else but Ruben Dias and that guy, and then we choose the rest. No, I think there was no, like, a more obvious option as a Portuguese central defender. I think we have actually a very good defense. I think this might be the best central back group in that we had in our history. I don't know much about pre-2000s, okay? But Ruben Dias, Gonçalo Inácio, great starting. Maybe we had better starting duo with like Pep, Ricardo Carvalho. I think that was amazing. But then the subs were not that great. And the subs, like, I think we have world-class starting central backs and subs. I think that's undeniable. Then, right back, already talked about it, it's really weird. We have João Cancelo, Nuno Mendes, Diogo Dalot, Mateus Nunes that can play fullback, so 4 potential right fullbacks. Very weird. And then you have 1 left back, Nuno Mendes. João Cancelo can also play there, so that means that either Nuno Mendes or João Cancelo will be playing a lot of 90-minute games, because the sub of Nuno Mendes will be João Cancelo, or we're not starting Nuno Mendes and João Cancelo, so João Cancelo can be the sub for Nuno Mendes, so we're not using our most powerful right back, because he's going to be the sub of the left back. It's really weird, but Nuno Mendes itself, the best fullback in the world, the best left back in the world, good at defending, goes forward very, very powerfully, can go forward wide, can go forward in the middle. Sometimes he was kind of cooked by Olise versus Bayern, so that could be a problem. He can improve his defending a little bit, but it's okay. On the right, João Cancelo, very creative, can play in the middle, can go into the middle, can play wide. I think it's just a bit defensively not very consistent, but it's okay. I don't think it will be perturbing too much our strategy, and I think him going forward will be awesome. Then I go into the midfield, and here we have a player that I can't see him being called up to the national team anymore, and it's like, it's not because he's super bad, it's because we have better options, and he's just covering their spot, and I hate him. But first, let's read our nominees for the midfield. Ruben Neves, Samu Costa, João Neves, Vitinha, Bruno Fernandes, and Bernardo Silva. First, elite. Vitinha, João Neves, Bernardo Silva, Bruno Fernandes, elite. Why not we play in a 4-4-2 with 2 central midfielders and 2 offensive midfielders? Vitinha, João Neves, Bernardo Silva, Bruno Fernandes. Ronaldo up there, boom. We don't... Like, come on. Ronaldo and somebody. Ronaldo Gonçalo Ramos up there. Boom, done. Why not? Why not? But, midfield class. Some people say, bro, there was a person on my Discord saying that England had better midfield than Portugal because they had Declan Rice. And I was like, bruh, that just makes no sense, right? Portugal has an elite overall midfield. And I think it's going to be working well. Vitinha playing from the back, genius midfielder playmaker. João Neves can be box-to-box, can be just a defensive midfielder, can be a channel midfielder, can also play as an organizer, but not as well. But it's just like, he can do a lot of the roles in the middle. Bernardo Silva, very, very creative, playing very well into the middle. Bruno Fernandes, super dynamic and offensive. And Bernardo Silva can also play on the wings, but I don't think it's his best role. He's really good at starting in the middle, then drifting to the wing to open play for the rest of his teammates. He does that very, very well. And then both Bruno, Vitinha, João Neves, and Bernardo Silva, they are just elite mentality as well. They're always very focused. They don't make a lot of falls, and they're not extremely aggressive, and they're very composed, and they know how to balance the team out going forwards or defensively. Then my claim here is against Ruben Neves. I'm just tired of seeing him being called up to the national team. He just makes no sense. He's playing on a non-good league. He's playing in Saudi. I don't think he has quality. I don't think he has the physicality. I don't think he has the mentality to be playing for this national team. And he's covering the spot, for example, for a Mateus Fernandes from West Ham. Like, This is incredible. Like, we have Ruben Neves that it's okay, he's very experienced and maybe very composed, but I don't think he brings quality to the national team. And then we have Matheus Fernandes, which is a youngster, which can always be inconsistent, but also can break the mold. Also, it can bring creativity and unpredictability, and he's a great playmaker as well. So we could have him and throw him in a couple of games. I know it's a different profile. Ruben Neves is more defensive, and if we don't take Ruben Neves, we only have one really defensive midfielder. But that's not true because we have João Neves and Samu Costa that can do that. So Ruben Neves, first, it will be very confusing. It's always is when you have Ruben Neves and João Neves on the same field. But Ruben Neves for me makes no sense, and I think it's another Roberto Martinez mindset of I know him, is a part of my routine. I will keep him even though he doesn't bring quality. And it's like he's not the worst player in the world, but we have best. We have better players. We could bring Palhinha, we could bring Matheus Fernandes, we could bring even Rodrigo Mora, even though he's a winger, but he can also play in the middle. Like, we could bring a wild card option or just another solid player to play in the middle, because people online are debating. Samu Costa should be out, so Matheus Fernandes could be in. No, Ruben Neves should be out, so Matheus Fernandes could be in. And then you have two youngster midfielders that is always great. They always have that super desire to play for the national team and prove their worth, while some experienced players like Ruben Neves, sometimes they lack the willpower, sometimes they lack the energy. And I've seen him and Felix and Ronaldo both coming out of the Saudi League and not having the rhythm and just sometimes not doing the right defensive coverage, for an example. So in the midfield, elite, I'll just take Ruben Neves and bring Palhinha or bring Matheus Fernandes. And what about Samu Costa? I agree. Some people might say he's not the best Portuguese midfielder. Maybe we had better players to bring, which is true, but in his profile, I don't think it's true. Because João Palhinha, better defensively, but slower, not so versatile tactically, a bit worse with the ball, a bit, not too much. And I think mentally, coming from that Tottenham season and the environment, is not good for a World Cup. Meanwhile, Samu Costa playing well at Mallorca, not, I think his spirit is better than Palhinha, and I think he'll be a great help to replace Ruben Neves or João Neves once they get tired or injured or with a lot of yellows. So I think Samu Costa is a great choice. It's a risk. It's not like he's the best player we could have in the midfield. We have to bring him. No, it's a risk. I think it's good for the future. I think it's a way of Roberto Martinez also communicating with the Portuguese fans and he's like, see, I can also bring some weird choices. I can also bring some young players because we have to start building this youngster generation as well right now. I think it's a great time for Samu Costa to come in. I just hope he doesn't make any big mistakes, like getting a red card or losing the ball in our own half and then we concede, because then it's the manager being punished by his risks, and we never like that because we like to see risks. Otherwise, kind of Brazil situation happened where they stopped, but that's like on a lower level of the youth academy. They stopped taking risks because it was like back in the day, you had one guy that would work with the same youth level for a very long time. Now it's like you can lose your job. So managers need to prioritize winning and results instead of growing players. So they grow more static and mentally strong players instead of creative and real baller players. That's why Brazil has been decaying, because they're punishing the risk. And we don't want that to happen at this level. And now, to conclude, we are going to talk about our strikers. We have Pedro Neto, João Félix, Francisco Trincão, Francisco Conceição, Rafael Leão, Gonçalo Guedes, Gonçalo Ramos, and Cristiano Ronaldo. And I have some problems here as well. First, I think we have quality, we have talent, we have finishers. We have Cristiano Ronaldo and Gonçalo Ramos, your typical strikers, in the box, play well in the box, can even play well with the team. I just really hate when Cristiano Ronaldo thinks he's a midfielder and he comes into the midfield and tries to play ball and he really can't. And then actually when we can play to the sides or through the middle and we need somebody to score a goal, he's still coming from the midfield into the box. That doesn't work, Ronaldo. I keep telling you, you are the best pine tree. That's a term that we call here in Portugal. He's the best pine tree in the world. Which is a pine tree player? What is it? He's a tall player, a strong player that is in the middle of the box, waiting for crosses. Waiting for crosses. fighting with the defenses, making some 1-2 touch combination, fighting hard so the defense gets perturbed, gets nervous. Hi, Momo. So the opponent defense gets kind of nervous, and then the rest of the team can come in and score a goal. So Ronaldo, he should do that plan. Stay in the box, be a strong support, go for aerial fights, because in the box he's also very good at still dribbling, 1-2 combinations with teammates, just powerful shots from right outside of the box, curved shots. He actually can make some good short crosses as well. So I think playing more in the box will be best for him. Gonçalo Ramos, it's kind of we don't really know scenario because he doesn't play much for Paris Saint-Germain. We know he's a really good player, but does he have the rhythm? Does he have the mentality? We have to wait and see. Then Rafael Leão, also a bit like we don't really know, because he's really fluctuant with his performance. He can be the best player and the worst player in the same match. It all depends to how he's feeling, to the vibe and the play style. If he needs to defend a lot, he's not the right choice. If we can go on the counter, he's the right choice. Then Francisco Tricão, I think one of the best Portuguese players at the moment. I think he can bring a lot of quality and elite class to the field. He might be very tired. Maybe he can't handle the rhythm because he does play in the Portuguese league where the rhythm is not very high. Maybe he can't really handle it, but I think his creativity and his vision for goal and for passes will be perfect for this World Cup. And then Francisco Conceição is like, I see it. I don't think he's the best player that we have, but I think he can bring a lot of dribble. He can bring a lot of nervousness to the defenders, and he brings energy every time. So if Portugal is playing against a low block or the game is not going right, the spirits are down, Francisco Conceição is always a good player to come in and change that literally, because he's always trying to score goals. He's always trying to dribble, always trying to bring the team close to the goal, always shooting himself, even if the shot goes wide or goes over the goal. That brings a spark back. I think that's a good choice. I don't think he's at his best, but I don't think he's at his worst, and I don't think he's a bad call up. I think he's actually a nice player, and it's not like, yeah, we need to bring him, he's gonna win the World Cup for us, but I think he's gonna be very useful. Now, let's go to the problems. For me, two problems and a what the fuck situation here. So the problems for me, Pedro Neto and João Felix. Pedro Neto is a good player, I actually like him, but I don't think he's in the moment. I don't think he's in the moment at all, because he's coming from the Chelsea mess, and he's been very one-directional. He's been very one-trick pony, which is pick up the ball, run forwards, and that's it. And I think we need more. To win the World Cup, we need more than that. Because Francisco Conceição can also do that, and then he can come into the middle, he can actually drop into the midfield and make a play, and he brings something different. It's not just pick the ball and run on the wing. And I think Pedro Neto is now limited because he can be really good when he's in the right spirit, and he can do that one job, very, very well. And that can break defenses, but I don't think he'll be at that level right now, and I think we have better options to bring. Ricardo Horta, for example, even if he doesn't do well, just like I told you earlier, representing Portugal, being that best player ever of the fourth best club in Portugal, could be just good there, and he brings something different as well than Pedro Neto, which doesn't bring much. And then my second problem is João Felix. I just hate João Felix on the Portuguese team. I don't hate him as a player, I don't hate him as a person, but I've seen him too many times don't give a fuck, have no rhythm, and just, for example, against Ireland, one of the goals they conceded was because João Felix did a very, very poor job defensively, and then he actually had a chance to do a jump, for an example, and perturb that play from Ireland when they scored the goal, but he made a little fairy jump. It's those type of things that I see from him and from Ruben Neves that I just don't like. Like, these guys can be in the national team if they be playing like that. Now, if they came in with a different mindset, if João Felix comes in as a baller and he actually helps defend, bro, he can be the best player of the national team, but not as now, bro. What he has been doing has been awful. Like, why does he keep being called up? We have better options to play. Like, even a mid Pedro Gonçalves will do better because his rhythm and his mentality are on a different level. You know, like Matheus Fernandes could be completely here in the place of João Neves or Pedro Neto as well. For an example, we have many other players that could do his job better. For example, here we have the transfer market team builder where you can pick your team for the World Cup. I'll be doing a video doing this one, but here I just want to show you like the other wingers and striker options that we have to bring instead of Pedro Neto or João Felix for the Portuguese over here. This is have strikers, wingers, and fillers all mixed up, but we can see Pedro Gonçalves, for example, Rodrigo Moura. I'm not saying they should be called up, just other examples that we could have bring. Carlos Forbes as well, for an example, could be good as well. Gustavo Sá from Famalicão, Ricardo Horta, even Paulinho and Matheus Fernandes from these four. I think they could be better than Pedro Neto and João Felix. Gonçalo Guedes was called up, that's true, that's the wild card I wanted to talk about, because Gonçalo Guedes was called up. How has he been doing for Real Sociedad? Let's take a look. So he played 32 games in La Liga, that's crazy, 8 goals, 4 assists. Okay, so 12 goal contributions in 32 games, not bad. And then he played 7 games in Copa del Rey. He played 39 games. In total, he played 2,329 minutes. How many games he played full? He played around 26 full games. That's crazy. So he has rhythm, yes. He has rhythm. Okay, he's been playing as right wing, left wing. Because Spain is not an easy championship. Where did the Real Sociedad finished this season? So we have one match to go on the Spanish league, and Real Sociedad is now 10th, actually. But they win the Spanish Cup, that's true. Still, okay, Gonçalo Guedes, he's very versatile. Okay, it's like alright, I see, it's okay. I think it's an alright choice, I'm not too mad about that. If he has the rhythm, if he has the competitive and the intensity, I'm there for it. Then, for wingers or offensive midfielders, we're starting to run out of gas here, actually. Rafa Silva, no, for sure. Alfonso Moreira from Lyon. I think it will be better than Pedro Neto or João Felix. I think we're now too deep into the Portuguese options. But I think, for example, Mora for the place of Felix. Even Kenda could be good, then help defend. I think Forbes could be a good option. Matheus Fernandes, Gustavo Sá, Ricardo Horta, or Paulinho. All of them could have been better choices than Pedro Neto and João Felix. But I don't think, like, Pedro Neto will still fight really hard. Pedro Neto will still play with intensity. My major problem is with Felix, because yes, he can bring good quality to the offensive play style, but defensively and the intensity level is not that great. So this is my thoughts about the lineup call for Portugal for the World Cup 2026. Let me know what you think in the comments on below, and I'll be doing a reaction to most of the teams, if not all teams here on the channel. Leave a like and subscribe. See you on the next one.